5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
You're listening to the GHT Overland podcast.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the GHT Overland podcast. This is where you get the greatest interviews and insights from overland travelers around the globe, learning from their stories and experience as we interview overlanders from places like Australia, Africa, the Americas, and I have no idea why all three of those start with A's, Portugal, and today, Washougal, Washington. You will learn the basics to the advanced in overlanding, so buckle up and get ready for a new adventure. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lisa. Today's featured guests are us. Yeah, we're going to go through a review of 2018.
Sounds like a grand plan. And, just to be upfront and honest, we kind of screwed up on last week's episode with a release date. It was supposed to release on this day. And the next one, next Thursday. So now I know that all of your brains are going, what just happened? So to keep it simple, we screwed up. We apologize. The episode last week with the Traveling Together Journal with Amy and Matt, you will pick up on episode 2 next Thursday. And it's a lot of fun, so be sure and tune into that. In the meantime, we thought we would do a review, which we wanted to do anyway, so it all works out pretty good, of all the interviews we did in 2018. And we're looking forward to doing some new things in 2019. So, if you'd like to give us your thoughts and feedback on things that you would like to hear, be sure and send them to us, either on the direct message, Facebook, or Instagram at GHT Overland. What's the other way they can send us something?
At the GHT Overland podcast at gmail.com.
Yep, so you can send us an email as well. So in this week's episode, what we're going to do is we're going to review 2018, all the interviews that we went through, just over 50 of them, 50 episodes, and kind of break down all of those responses that we received. Lisa, are you ready?
I'm ready. So let's go through all the questions that we asked our interviewees, and I'm going to let you elaborate on those.
You're putting me in the hot seat.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's get going.
All right. Tell us what inspired overland travel for you.
That was a really good question, and it started off pretty much all of our interviews. And I think to sum it up, most everybody that we talk to, they're either already travelers or they like to travel. They've been camping for some time and enjoy camping, and they love adventure. And I think that's really what spurred most of the overlanders into the journey that they were on when we did the interview with them. There definitely were some exceptions to that. The Vagabrods come to mind. They definitely traveled. They liked adventure, but they had never gone camping before, and they just jumped all feet in immediately, and I thought that was super cool.
So the next question we asked was, once you originally decided overlanding was something you wanted to do, how long was it before you left for your first trip?
Boy, that one varied a lot, didn't it?
It did.
So the first thing that comes to mind, again, would be the Vagabrods, and they just jumped in pretty quickly into their adventure and just got it done. And then some people, I think, if I were to sum it up with most of the people we talked to, they took a lot of time preparing and planning, and their advice towards the end of the interview was don't spend so much time planning and thinking about doing it. Just go do it.
Correct. An additional question was, tell us about your current vehicle and any name you may have given it.
Well, the vehicles varied greatly. It obviously does not matter what you drive. It's just what what you're into and what you're looking for in comfort will determine what it is you're going to take on your overland adventure. Now, for the names of the vehicles, one that always came to mind was Sooty with Overland the Americas. I just thought that was a cute, fun, entertaining name. And the other one that always came to mind, I don't know why, would be Dawn with JK Overland. Just because it's just funny. Just a super basic name. Name is Dawn.
Yep.
So it's cool.
Yeah.
Any others come to mind to you?
With Just Escape, Puddles, and Matilda.
Those were two pretty funny names.
Yeah.
All right, what's up next?
What is that one thing you value the most, either on or in your vehicle?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to the answer to that one. And I was thinking we were going to get a lot more variation, which we did. I mean, there was a fair amount of variation, but it seemed that the number one thing without question was the fridge.
Hands down.
Yep. And it, like the brand of fridge and this or that really varied. Everybody was super happy with whatever fridge they got. So I think as people go through and if they're trying to select one, make sure that the size is right for you, making sure that it's not overly too big, but it's not too small and you can use that extra space to store water or what have you because the fridge becomes more efficient when there's stuff in it opposed to running it when it's empty. But the fridge was the number one, hands down, unquestionably the most valuable piece. Then there was Ray Highland, and we learned a new piece of equipment, the Palaxi Axe. So I love the education and learning so much from all the people that we interviewed.
Additionally, anything you originally packed that you never used or removed from your overall setup.
Clothes.
Yeah, everybody was packing too much clothing.
Yep. Again, there of course there's variation, so not that was the only thing ever, but yeah, most of the time it was just that we packed way too much clothes.
So what about when we asked them about their current top 2 or 3 destinations?
Mexico and tacos.
That's tacos are in Mexico.
Tacos are a destination.
I like that though.
Yes, it was Mexico. I mean, there's a lot of different places in, man, I'm telling you, you got to go back and listen to all the episodes if you haven't. Go to the website, GHT Overland /podcast. Go through all the show notes, and each individual person has their top 2 or 3 destinations. If you want a destination to go to and you're going to the area that they went to, great recommendations. But Mexico is the one that really stood out time and time again. Mexico and tacos.
Taco heaven.
Taco heaven. Right, KP?
Straight from KP Taylor.
Yep.
On provisions, how did they plan for purchasing groceries during their longer trips?
I think we got 2 things out of that one. One was either a supermarket, so the local, and I was really surprised, like even in Africa, how many locations there's a larger supermarket that, like, I didn't think there would be supermarkets there, but there are. So it was either that or shopping in the like farmers markets or the small villages. Man, we got some really good stories from getting chickens, picking out your chicken, and then picking out the guy that's going to kill the chicken, and then the guy that's going to pluck the chicken, and then the guy that's going to prepare the chicken. So did we learn a lot of things over the last year at that. But overall, either supermarkets or going to the local shopping areas, like a farmer's market, and getting the local produce like a roadside stand. And a lot of times you'll find that at the roadside stand, you're going to get equal, if not better quality product at a much lower price than what you're going to get it at the supermarket for.
And also on that same note, eat what the locals are eating, what's more popular, because that's the safe stuff to eat.
100%. Smart.
What about some of their favorite meals?
The one I always think of is with David and Raquel from Lost for Days, and they came up with the ATE. Do you remember what the ATE was?
Avocado, tomato, and egg.
Yep. And she walked us right through that. So feel free to check out the show notes on Lost for Days. Really good recipe and quick and easy. was the big thing. And I think that that's what it really came down to for most of the people that we interviewed, was keeping it simple, keeping it easy, and delicious.
Yes, delicious.
And then the second one that comes to mind is the one that we're doing currently with the Traveling Together Journal, Havo Rancheros. And I'm probably saying that wrong. I don't know any Spanish except for tequila. But that recipe sounded delicious. So that was last week's episode. So if you want to hear the recipe, skip back one after you're done with this one and listen to Amy spell it out. It sounds super delicious. We need to actually write down those steps and actually try it out. And she sent us a picture. We posted one of the pictures on social of that particular recipe. It looks delicious. It looks as good as it sounds.
How did they generally do their laundry on the road?
I think I would say it came down to several different ways. There was no like one standout. Well, I'd say there's two. From everyone that's coming from Holland or Germany, I don't remember if GHT Overland with Jack and Christina, if they did this as well, but it seemed to be all what I would refer to as the bucket method. So they've got a bucket. They would put the clothes, the water, the soap, tighten it up, put it on the top of the rig, and start driving. And with all the bumpy roads, obviously, overlanding, when they get to their destination, they're all agitated and washed out and good to go. Pour out the dirty water, put in clean water, shake it up, rinse it out. Do that a couple times, hang it up, let it dry. Boom, clean laundry. And the other way was, especially going through the Americas, Mexico and further south, is having the ladies that do laundry, basically, and hiring other people to do that for you. Then you've got the people that are just hand washing at the rivers and the creeks. But those seem to be the two that really stood out the most.
Yeah, because I can see where if you don't keep up on your laundry as you go, you're going to have this big, huge pile, and that's the last thing you want to do when you get to a destination in Mexico is do your laundry.
Yeah, and I think the big lesson there is for you to figure out what works best for your style of overlanding or living. For example, on the other end of that, overlanding the Americas with Thaisa and Ernesto, they took a lot of clothes. They used them for packing material, kept everything nice and neat and tight so it didn't shake around while they're driving. But on the other hand, they didn't have to do laundry as often.
Right.
Because they had lots of different changes of clothes, not just 2 or 3. So you're going to have to figure out what works for your style and what works for you. The other thing that comes to mind, though, when we get to our next subject with hygiene, kind of goes together with the clothing, though, as well. With Marco Moak with the Holland to Africa tour, is he said, well, after a few days, we all smelled the same.
Yeah.
So you can go with that as well. So again, it really depends on what works for each individual person. But I think, again, we're finding a very keep it simple kind of way of doing things.
Simple and variation.
Yep.
So what's going to work for you?
But that you're having fun, you're enjoying it, and you're not making it an absolute nightmare for yourself.
We then asked, what would they change about their current setup?
I don't know that I've got anything that really comes to mind on this one, except some people would say everything, and some people would go more with, it's kind of working the way I've got it. So I think the more experienced you are and the more often that you've gone out on overlanding trips, the more you're going to lean more towards the everything is fine and there's not much I would change at all. If you've not done very many trips and you go from doing 0 to a year-long process, you would probably come back saying you would change everything.
Yeah, you got to work out the kinks.
Yep. So take those weekend trips, take the week, 2 weeks, month trips to work out all of those little details to make sure that your trip is as enjoyable as possible with all the finer details of your setup.
What was their number one biggest challenge they've had to overcome on the road?
Okay. So the most epic story of 2018 that we got was from Lost for Days when they got stuck in the salt flats of Bolivia. That was the number one, like, from a physical and mental place, the biggest challenge we heard about. If you haven't heard it, trust me, go back and listen to it. It's a great story, and it's a great lesson in overcoming, and that you can overcome no matter what the challenge is and get yourself out. And they did a fantastic job of doing that. The other thing that really stuck out to me, one thing that I did not expect going into this, was the partnership. It was how do you and I get along, or where is that relationship currently, going from living in a house, working either at the same place or a different place. As KP and Taylor from Running from Monday said, you have those day-to-day stories to tell each other from work or from doing whatever as you're doing it separate. And then you go to living 1 foot, 2 meters away from each other 24/7. That changes the dynamic a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the advice we got from Jolie and Mark from The Way Overland was really good. You need to come up with different interests individually and do things separate from each other. And KP and Taylor kind of touched on that a little bit, and Mark and Jolie just expanded on that a little bit more. But that's one thing you need to be aware of when you hit the road for a long period of time, is that person-to-person relationship, and how are you going to work that out? And do you have that separation? Have you created that? Because it's physically not going to be there as you're driving in your vehicle.
Correct. So it does help if your setup can have 2 different areas, so you can send him downstairs. Well,
and that was Julie and Mark as well. He would go downstairs, she would go upstairs in their rooftop tent. Or they're not really a rooftop tent, that's not fair. They had a roof conversion, so the whole thing just kind of came up.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. What's up next, Lisa?
Border crossings were pretty interesting.
But they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be.
No. Who was the one that said they sent their dog to the other side?
Well, you're referring to Travis with Yeti Ambo. And it wasn't that he did that. It was a story he had with another couple that was overlanding, and that was kind of their gig.
Oh, right. It was funny.
It was entertaining. But I think the overall lesson there on border crossings is go prepared. Make sure you've got multiple copies of all your stuff. Don't give your original documents to just anybody, if anybody, if you don't need to. Be patient. Have a great attitude. Don't be in a hurry.
Start early.
And if you run across a super long line of semi-trucks, you do not need to wait with them.
And that was interesting. I didn't realize you could do that, like go around.
Yeah, and a lot of the people, the first time they did that, they didn't realize that either.
That's a long wait.
I don't know how the semis get through. Like, are they there for weeks?
They've got to be.
Yeah, and then there's different ways of going about the process of hiring a fixer or a helper or whatever you want to refer to it as. You can either A, do it, or B, not do it. Currently, after talking to Ray Highland, our thought process is it's much like, in most cases, hiring a professional that can walk you through the process, and you're going to pay him or her for their expertise and their time, and they're going to save you a lot of time. You could also do it the other way, your DIY way, but just know it's going to take you a lot more time. You may have more frustration and more headache. So it's whatever works for you, really. But a lot of good lessons in each episode to be able to pull the different perspectives from. But overall, patience and being prepared.
So the navigation and communication was pretty big.
Yeah, that was another mixed bag, but I think I would really bring it down. I love the interview we did with Ashley with Gaia GPS. That was really good, and I'm a huge fan of Gaia GPS. So you've got that. Maps.me is also another very popular, I would say maybe even the most popular method. You've got Google Maps, and we went anywhere from very helpful to being convinced that Google Maps is trying to kill them. So be cautious there. Having multiple options on your navigation is probably the smartest thing to do. Don't just count on Google Maps. Don't just count on any one app or resource. I think would be what I would walk away with on that. And then on communication, everybody pretty much used a cell phone. They either got a local SIM card. T-Mobile seemed to be a pretty smart way to go on cell service. The surprising thing was Wi-Fi service was available more widely outside the U.S. than in the U.S.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah, super, super weird. So I guess we're behind the times on that one. Nobody really used, which I was surprised, like ham radio too much. We had a couple, but not too much. And cell phones. That was it. Then on emergency communications, that would definitely come down to Spot. We did Spot and InReach from Garmin. We actually did an episode with Spot. That was really good. So a lot of good education there. That's your backup plan. And I think everybody should have that with them for that backup plan. And I suppose that it kind of fits into this, but I don't know where else to put it. But a new resource that you're probably not aware of, unless you listen to our interview with Overland's site, is Polar Steps. It is an application you can put on your phone. It's currently free, and it's worth checking out. I mean, I don't know everything about it, so there's not a lot that I can really say about it. But you can send your location, and your family can see where you're at. You can take pictures at those specific locations, and you can be in Africa. Your family can be in Utah or wherever they are, and they can see what you're doing and where you're at, and there's no cost. And that was a new resource we learned from Overland's site we have not heard about before. So, what other questions did we ask our guests as we drilled them for about an hour on each interview?
Let's jump to philanthropy and volunteering and what our guests experienced or inspired others to do.
Number one, Emily and Aaron of the Two Dusty Travelers come to mind first. I think we learned the most from them. We had from our first interview with Misha, who had paid for the vaccinations of all the school kids in a small town. And I don't remember the name of the city right off the top of my head. But we had from that to donating a generator. We had another one donating cameras, computers, rope, all kinds of stuff. But the one that really stuck out, at least to us, was with Emily and Aaron of the Two Dusty Travelers, because it came down to doing it smart and doing it ethical and understanding what the impact you're having by doing whatever it is you're doing, especially with volunteering, and making sure that it's not having a negative impact on the back end that you're not aware of. So, for an example, would be an orphanage. Volunteering at an orphanage pulls at the heartstrings, right?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to children.
So what you're not aware of, what we were not aware of, is on the back end, a lot of those children would not be orphans if the volunteering for the orphanages was not so high. So they're getting these kids, they're putting them in orphanage because there's money to be made in that process. So there's a negative impact by trying to do a good thing.
Yeah.
So you got to be smart about what you're doing. Do your research, do your homework. Know that what you're doing and who you're doing it with comes with recommendations and is legit, that it's actually doing good. So let's go back to Jack and Christina with JK Overland. They're picking up all the rubbish on the beaches.
But they were shocked to see how much garbage.
Yep. And we've had other people that have done good things for the street dogs, right?
Yeah.
So feeding them and even bringing like flea medication to give them so that the poor animals aren't just scratching to death with all the fleas that they've got. So that's obviously a good thing. So be smart. That was one thing that we learned. A lot of people out there, so many overlanders doing so much good. It is really humbling to learn about what they're doing. So be sure and join that when you go out, do good and do it smart. All right, Lisa, we're going to reverse the roles here, and I'm going to ask you the last few questions, all right?
Jeez.
So remember our closing questions when we would wrap it up? The what keeps your co-driver occupied during long travels? That was a mixed bag all over the place, so I don't think we can have one thing to nail down on that one.
The funniest one, though, was Bodensee.
But with Bert and Claudia?
Yes.
Well,
she liked to do her nails.
Well, don't like all girls?
Yeah. Yes. We like to feel pretty.
The one that I thought was always that brought the most laughs was, do you play any musical instruments on the road or around the campfire at night? And what was usually the answer to that?
A big, quick no.
Or with good intention. Or, I brought a harmonica, but it's disappeared and I have no idea where it's gone.
Yeah.
As the other person was snickering in the background.
Right. I'm kind of thinking maybe they hid it.
And then what's the one that always stood out the most on the morning? What's your favorite drink in the morning to get you going?
Oh, it's coffee, hands down.
Yep. There was like 2 or 3 standouts to that, but 90% of those are all coffee. And it sounds like Columbia is a good place to get coffee.
Yeah, I was going to say, must try Columbia. It's the strongest one.
Yeah, well, let's just go right to Columbia.
Okay.
And then what about a favorite beverage at night to wind down after a long day on the road?
It always ended up being just that ice cold beer.
Yeah, beer or wine. It seemed that the ladies more often went with wine and the guys more often went with a beer. And the beer was all over the place.
Yeah.
On what it was. Just cold beer was the important part.
Yeah. Long day driving. You got to have a cold beer.
Yep. And then the last one, basically the same answer to every single episode when we ask this last question. What is your best advice to aspiring overlanders like us?
Stop planning and just do it.
100%. That was it. So we hope you've enjoyed this wrap up of 2018 with Lisa and Chris of the GHT Overland podcast. We so appreciate you listening and downloading these episodes. Keep your feedback coming. We absolutely enjoy hearing from you and your recommendations for people that we can contact for an interview. So get out there and just do it. So as we mentioned in the very beginning, be sure and send any questions, suggestions, or feedback to ghtOverlandpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM on the socials, either Facebook or Instagram would be the best ones, and you can find us at GHT Overland.
So before you race off, it would mean the world to us if you'd rate and review the podcast, give GHT Overland a little iTunes love so we could reach as many overlanders as possible. Thank you, and we will see you next Thursday for part 2 with the Traveling Together Journal.
And be sure and check out their YouTube channel. It's really well done, really great. Have a great week.